All right, Houston Texans, 32-12 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Texans move on, going to Kansas City for the Saturday afternoon slot because that's what the Houston Texans do.
Yeah.
Good win by Houston, man. It was 6-0 Chargers. They were moving the ball early, but stopped in the red zone a couple times. It was only 6-0. Houston comes back with a huge 99-play drive on 13 plays, sparked by a couple key ones, including the scramble drill off a fumble from CJ Stroud. But that was really what sparked Houston, and never looked back after that.
It really was. That play changed the game. Because the first half was an absolute disaster class from both teams. Like, the Texans fumble in the first play of the game. It was a complete mess in the first half. And then, that one play that looked like, oh, no, it's just another play in the latest line of catastrophes from both teams. Stroud ends up scooping it up, running for his life to right field, and then total breakdown in coverage in the Chargers secondary, and suddenly he's turned it into a big play that's propelled them a good chunk of the way down the field and getting them towards scoring position. And that play did seem to kind of shake him out of whatever he was dealing with early in the game. And then the Texans stopped making the same volume of mistakes. The Chargers didn't. I mean, Justin Herbert on the other side continued to have a disaster of a game, and that became the difference. Like, there was essentially 3 of the 4 halves from both teams were catastrophes, and then Houston's offense shook itself out of that for the second half.
Yeah, Stroud had a bad early interception, and then the Chargers come right out, try to take a shot play, and Herbert makes a bad decision, chucks it up into double coverage for a pick as well. Texans had a blocked punt and a blocked extra point in this game that eventually brought back for 2. It was Drake in the Drake Holiday says in the chat, sloppy game. I think, very sloppy.
It was, and sides. There were people out there trying to claim that this was really high-level defense, and it was because look, I think that there's an argument sometimes. Low scoring, everyone's like, this game sucks. A lot of time, it's low scoring because both defenses are playing amazing football, and it's actually still a really good game, just not the one you want to see with points everywhere and easy scoring. And it's not a Big 12 track meet, right? This was not one of those games, in my opinion. This was a game where the offenses were simply not executing at all, and it was ugly because it was sloppy, not ugly because the defenses were amazing. Now, there were some good defensive plays, but by and large, to me, this game was much more just bad offense than it was good defense.
I mean, even one of the first drives for the Chargers, Will Dissly wide open for what should have been a first down. He drops it.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why the Chargers had to settle for 3. Later in the game, Will Dissly basically drops the pass, throws it into Derek Stingley's hands for an interception, not absolving Herbert of the other ones. He had 4 picks, 3 of them definitely on him, and I think it was 4 total turnover-worthy plays per PFF. It was an ugly game for Justin Herbert. But yeah, it was some bad offense, I think, on both sides.
There was a lot of bad offense. There was some bad special teams as well, as you already talked about. I mean, there was a lot going wrong with this game, and then eventually, Houston pulled themselves together for long enough to win it.
Let's talk from a Chargers point of view first, and we'll finish with the Texans and look ahead to their Chiefs game a little bit. But I thought this game summed up, right? We talked coming in like, hey, if Quentin Johnston just had a career high 13 for 186 against the Raiders, if he can figure it out, if he can become dependable next to Ladd McConkey, the Chargers have something. Well, he wasn't dependable.
Narrator. He did not figure it
out. He had 0 catches on 5 targets, including the one you mentioned an hour and a half ago on the show. On a key 4th and 1, they're running a whip route to the 6'5", downfield mismatch potential weapon. A whip route, a little in and out. Like, this is Wes Welker's route. This was
Ladd McConkey's route.
It's Ladd McConkey's route. Julian Edelman had the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl with a whip route. You don't run it with Quentin Johnston, who not only ran it short of the sticks, caught it for a loss of 1 yard, but eventually they said he didn't actually catch it. It was incomplete. It was bad.
I mean, it didn't matter either way. But, I don't understand why you would do that. You have Ladd McConkey, who, number 1, is the entire source of offense for your team at this point. Number 2 is very suited to that type of play. He's very good at running those types of routes. And number 3 at this point was not, the way they set up was not covered by Derek Stingley. Now, maybe it would have been had they run that play for Ladd McConkey as opposed to Quentin Johnston. I just do not understand. That's calling a play that is horrifically suited to the skill set of the player you're asking to do it. there's a lot of reasons to criticize Quentin Johnston, generally. Him not being able to win on a whip route against Derek Stingley is not necessarily one of them. Now, he didn't run past the sticks at any point in that route. That was a problem. But that's bad play calling. It's bad play calling, and then it's bad execution of the bad play call, which is why you don't convert on 4th and 2. This is the thing, right? You have the initial decision. Do we go for 4th and 2, yes or no? Yes. Okay? Have no problem with that decision. I would imagine most, though who knows if all, of the analytics models say go. We go for it on 4th and 2. What are you calling? I'm going to call a whip route to Quentin Johnston against Derek Stingley. Cool? No, it's not cool. That's a dumbass idea. No. Call something different, or at least call it to a different receiver. I could not understand that play call at all, and it got what it deserved. Like, it got punished by not converting on 4th and 2.
Right. So, as I was kind of leading into, oftentimes in the playoffs, your weaknesses get magnified. And there were elements of the Chargers offense that seemed to get better during that. And Justin Herbert played really well down the stretch and maybe made the most of their pass catchers. But when Ladd McConkey, who's awesome, man, he is outstanding, 197 yards out of their 242 receiving yards, including the 86-yarder that maybe almost got the Chargers a little bit of life and got them back in it after a bad sequence. But 197 yards, NFL rookie record, but no one else. Number 2 on the team was Will Dissly with 16 yards, and Dissly had 2 disastrous drops in this game. So the Chargers need some pass catchers, and their lack of pass catchers, their lack of Ladd McConkey weapons really showed up in this one.
It did, and the other thing is the lack of the run game. The one area where I would say Houston's defense did really, really well is against the run. I mean, they had multiple players with negative sort of run stops on defense. Al-Shaair, who was back for them. You know, we talked about on the reaction show, right? It's not necessarily that he's the heart and soul of the defense, all the wishy-washy stuff. Like, he's the guy that calls the signals. Al-Shaair missing from the lineup is pretty important for that team because he's the guy with the green dot in his helmet. So Al-Shaair makes one. Eric Murray had one as well. Fadakasi made one. Kamari Lassiter had a really nice stop one-on-one against the run. They really shut down this Chargers run game. And remember when the Chargers lost J.K. Dobbins and suddenly the offense is very different. When they didn't have him being a dynamic rushing threat, it didn't look the same level of offense. This Dobbins played in this game, but they effectively didn't have J.K. Dobbins. Like, the Texans did such a good job of shutting down the run that they forced the Chargers to be that one-dimensional passing attack again. The one-dimensional passing attack had only Ladd McConkey functioning because Dissly dropped everything that was sent his way. Quentin Johnston didn't catch anything sent his way. So it's like, this is the most one-dimensional offense that exists in the NFL. It is basically how much can Justin Herbert hit Ladd McConkey. And that's it. That's all the Chargers had.
Which was often, but not enough, man.
Well, yeah, and can he do that without turning the ball over? And the answer to that was no. I mean, you know, Justin Herbert is going to start having the same conversation as Lamar Jackson has had in terms of, like, does this guy wilt in the playoffs? This is now 2 fairly significant implosions by Justin Herbert. And look, Herbert has been in this category of, like, is he up there with the very best quarterbacks in the NFL? And look, one of the things that differentiates those guys is, can you still do really well in disadvantageous situations? Like, if a team takes away your run game and your number 1 wide receiver drops everything that's thrown his way and your tight end can't catch a cold and you're basically limited to one guy, it's just you and Ladd McConkey, can you actually make that work? And the answer was a resounding hell no, I can't. I'm going to actually turn the ball over more in this game than I have in the entire regular season. That's how I'm going to react to that. There's no way of looking at that favorably for Justin Herbert. Now, maybe it's just one game variance and, you know, it's anecdotal and these things happen, but that's happened a couple of times for him now, and that's a pretty damning indictment of him as a quarterback.
Well, yeah. I saw somebody in the chat ask, why does he not get the same treatment as Lamar Jackson? I would just say Lamar's standards are higher, right? Because Lamar's better. I mean, he's had 2. Lamar's better, and his performances have been as bad, if not worse, than Herbert, especially relative to the expectations.
But we're going to start having that conversation.
I'm fine having the conversation, right? I mean,
that's where we're going based off the back of this game.
I still think Herbert had a really good year, but going into the playoffs here, yeah, you'd like to see more from this.
Like that.
3 turnover-worthy plays. And bad decisions, right? They were bad decisions, and just an inaccurate throw. The real backbreaker, it's 13-6. It was just 13-6. And he overthrows a short route right to Eric Murray, who takes it back for a pick six.
Yes.
That was a killer. Going back to the Jags game that they blew in the playoffs, it wasn't all Herbert. The defense blew it pretty badly as well. But he missed a wide-open touchdown in that game. Wide-open touchdown. That certainly would have stopped the 28-point comeback or whatever it was at the time. So
even if you take away the dropped interception, right, the one that hit Will Dissly in the hands and became an interception, even if you remove that from Herbert's game, he had the same number of interceptions as he had for like a giant chunk of this season. Like, it's for the entire season, right? The entire regular season. So it's like 3 in the regular season, then 3 in this game outside of the 4th that wasn't his fault. That's not acceptable for a quarterback that's supposed to be as good as Justin Herbert is.
No, it was awful. It was terrible. From a high-level standpoint, though, I look at the Chargers and think, okay, good year 1 under Jim Harbaugh. Right? And we went in and, they need 2 to 3 more pass catchers to go with Ladd McConkey. And, I mentioned this on the reaction show, but somebody tweeted at me like, oh, they chose Joe Alt over Malik Neighbors. I said, that's fine. Do that again. Joe Alt is I think a future all-pro right tackle. That good, right? He'll be fine. And I'm fine with that decision because they also did the whole tackle first, and then they got Ladd McConkey on the turn. That's an outstanding first 2 picks. But there's more work to be done. They were coming off of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams contracts. They were moving to this more run-heavy approach with Greg Roman. But, yeah, they need 2 to 3 more pass catchers here.
Yeah.
Whether, a tight end, a complementary piece to Ladd McConkey, and maybe something else, deep threat. So, yeah, there's more work to be done. Good first year. And my apologies to the Houston Texans, right? Because they kind of backed into the playoffs. They did it with poor performances against the Chiefs and the Ravens. I completely soured on them. But
they
it's
didn't
the
look
same
good.
Final Four. It's the same Final Four as last year's AFC.
Yeah.
And coming into this in the offseason, the way the Texans made those aggressive moves, Stephon Diggs, and we're going to build around CJ Stroud in year 2. We're going to make moves to go compete with the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. It didn't look like they could for most of the season. And I'm not saying they're there. I'm not saying they're going to go upset Kansas City, but have a little more confidence that they can maybe pull an upset the way this defense did play. And if CJ Stroud can put together a full game here.
Yeah, so it was interesting because we said in the preview, like the way that the Texans would be able to win this game is if CJ Stroud basically decides he's going to have the CJ Stroud Georgia game or the CJ Stroud Cleveland game in the playoffs a year ago, where he just goes, I don't care what the rest of the team looks like. I'm going to raise my level and the level of everybody around me. I'm going to make enough plays. And he really didn't do that in this game. Like, Stroud did not play well.
Nico Collins did too. Nico Collins is such a game changer.
Yeah.
When they can get him going, he has the ability to maybe carry an offense.
Yeah.
For a non-quarterback.
But they won this game and ended up winning it fairly comfortably without Stroud carrying the team on his back. Stroud made some plays. Like, there were some spectacular plays in here as well, but there was also some really bad plays in there. Like, he did not sort of drag this team himself. And actually, we said this
with 4 turnover-worthy plays. That's a big number.
One of them was that the Derwin James interception thing.
That was a huge play too. Derwin essentially picks him off in the end zone and just doesn't completely secure it.
Yeah, but that could have been. I mean, again, that's one of those plays where you're like, because of the outcome, which had to be sort of looked at in instant replay and poured over for a while. That's a massive swing in that game, depending on what they decide based off instant replay and slow-mos and all that kind of thing. Point being, I don't think Stroud was the reason that the Texans pulled themselves out of this funk and got it together. Bobby Slowik's taken a ton of crap this year for this offense sort of falling apart relative to a season ago. I think Bobby had a very good game, and obviously we're biased as guys who used to work with him and friends with him, but I thought Bobby called a good game here. The Texans were not having success early. He basically abandoned the run and said, go beat Joe Burrow, right? It's in your hands, CJ. Drop back passing game, get it out quickly. Like, the run game isn't here anyway right now. Just diagnose the defense, put the ball in the air, get it out quick. And that was working. That ended up, he dialed up a couple of really nice play calls as well that did give him places to go with the football. And then late in the game, that had opened up the run game. And suddenly Joe Mixon is able to really take control of this game and chew up clock and, run the game out. And they were able to take control late in a situation that wasn't on the table early. Like, if they tried to do that with Mixon in the first half, I don't think it would have worked. I don't think that was on the table. So I think Slowik deserves some praise, having been ripped apart all year by a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a really nice second half by Mixon, running the ball in that offensive line. But other key plays, Stroud with a 27-yard scramble just before the half to help set up free 3 points.
Yeah.
Or
he made some big plays.
He made a few big plays, but he put the ball in harm's way a couple times, including just dropped that snap. It was a spectacular recovery, but just dropping the snap as a starting point, not great. They're going to have to play cleaner against Kansas City. The defense, though, the pass rush with Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, they were getting after Herbert early on. I don't think Kansas City's when you throw deep on Stingley, it reminds me a lot of Richard Sherman, right? Where you don't throw deep passes.
You need to be accurate because
if you miss it a little bit short, he goes up and makes a play, and he did that on the deep ball where he got an interception. The other one was kind of a gimme.
If you're off, he's going to catch it.
But I don't see Kansas City they have enough other, weapons that they're just not even going to try that, which will be interesting.
This was impressive by Houston. Their defense is nasty. The only problem, I think, is that they have the most glaring Achilles heel of any team left in it. That offensive line is still an issue. They were saying going into this game, this is the best group of 5 they've had for a while. And it's maybe. I don't know that that's true. But even if it is, the group of 5 is Blake Fisher at right tackle, Juice Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson, Titus Howard a tackle moving into guard to cover that spot, and then the one really good player at left tackle, Laramie Tunsil. That's a bad offensive line still. It's just, you can't, I don't know that you can find an Achilles heel as glaring as that at any unit in the rest of those contending teams. You look, just stick with the AFC for a minute. Where's Buffalo's offensive line that looks like that? Or, the comparable unit anywhere on Buffalo's roster. Same thing with Baltimore, Kansas City. They don't have, each one of those teams does not have one of those units that can undermine the whole team.
In addition to those other 3 teams having essentially an O-line eraser in their quarterback, right? A guy that if the O-line's wrong can still make the defense wrong. In Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, those guys also do great work even when the offensive line is subpar. Stroud made some big plays with his legs outside of structure. I think he's going to have to be special this week against Kansas City.
Same analysis as a week ago. If they want to win this game, they need Stroud to be special and carry the team, even though he didn't
this week, though.
Yeah,
for real
definitely this time.
Yeah, definitely this time. Anyway, coming into the season, I thought the Texans should have been in the Final Four, and they made it. They're here.
Sure.
And they'll go to Kansas City. Lost. It was only 27-19 in Week 16. I do believe the Chiefs controlled the game a little bit more than that. That was the Stroud to Tank Dell spectacular touchdown where Tank Dell got hurt. By the way, if he was healthy, that would would help Houston's offense.
It's not all it's not necessarily Houston's failings. It's this team has been battered by injuries. The offensive line has dealt with a lot of injuries, and they're down 2 of their top 3 wide receivers. And we just talked about with the impact that had with Green Bay, right? If you take away their 3 top receivers against a good defense, it's not going to go well. Okay, Houston has Nico Collins, and that's their number 1, but they're down 2 and 3. That's a pretty important loss.
The Texans defense has to play better this week. So that'll kick off the divisional round Saturday afternoon in Kansas City. Anything else on this one?
No, I think we're done with this game. Got no more use for it.
Well done.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.